Hello, 6th period. This is Mr. Lassiter with you, and instead of lecturing today, I decided to hand it over to our 5th period, who will be creating the video for you to watch tonight or tomorrow, whenever it is you're watching this. So that being said, here you go. Let's get started. Tropical Africa and Asia.
The tropical environment. Anything within the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn are considered a tropical area. These areas do not have the typical hot and cold seasons and instead experience rainy seasons and dry seasons. The wet and dry seasons are not all consistent between areas in these tropics. The timing of the seasons will vary between areas due to winds around the local areas.
The tropics of Africa are located below the Sahara Desert. The rainfall in this area is very heavy and frequent, much more so than the arid Sahara Desert. India experiences these seasons in the forms of monsoons, where sudden winds that bring it with heavy rainfall. Traders relied on these monsoon winds to sail on from ports with their goods.
Human ecosystems. So we're going to start with pastoralists who foraged and hunted any animals they could find. People on the coast would also fish at any major water source they could find. And pastoralism was common in areas that were too arid for agriculture, so areas like the deserts or the Sahara. And the animals that they did have in the herds were used for either milk, hides, or meat to sustain their people. And some Asian cattle breeds spread from Asia. Going to agriculture, many plants had become agricultural staples, including bananas around the Great Lakes of Eastern Africa, and yams and cocoa yams from Asia. Around 1200, many Africans and Indians had begun agriculture because of the amount of rainfall in the area. So India has its monsoons, and the coast of Africa just gets a lot of rainfall naturally. And by 1200 BC, Bantu farmers had introduced tubers and grains into the southern areas of the continent.
As far as water systems go, farmers would abandon the fields every couple of years when the natural fertility was exhausted. These fields planted sugarcane, cucumbers, and melons, and the farmers in Vietnam, Java, Malaya, and Burma constructed special water control systems, essentially canals, to irrigate their terraced rice paddies. In the inland delta of the river delta, lots of rice could be grown because it was a very wet area, and people adapted for more forms of agriculture as water allowed. They faced a lot of challenges due to the uneven distribution of rainfall in these regions, but villagers in Southeast Asia were able to build dams to store their water. And many of these same irrigation and canal systems are in place today, although they have changed. In terms of irrigation specifically, irrigation made it possible to grow crops year-round, and farmers would abandon the fields, as I said before, every couple of years as the fertility of the soil decreased with use. So those crops sort of suck the fertility and the nutrients out of the soil, so they would have to rotate crops. Reservoirs and canals allowed the Sinhalese kingdom, which is in what is now Sri Lanka, to support a large population. And they burned the fields to give them a boost in fertility, which made them more fit for cultivating crops. The Delhi Sultanate introduced extensive new water control systems in India, and at one point they had intended to move their capital, but they realized that they could not because it was not close enough to water. So from about 1250 to 1400, the irrigation complex in Ceylon fell to ruins when invaders from South India interrupted the Sinhalese government. That's again in that Sri Lanka area. So irrigation allowed the Ceylon people to support a large population as well, and the population ended up suffering because of diseases.
So the tropics had many mineral resources in which helped with their agriculture and societies and trade. The impacts they had on the society and trade are the tropical people mined and refined metal ores that were in turn used in tools, weapons, and decorative objects. More valuable metals, copper and gold, were important in long-distance trade. Of the metals, iron was the most abundant and the most useful worked in the tropics. These things, alongside farmers, fishermen, herders, and metal workers, made it possible for the rise of powerful states and profitable commercial systems.
So as for the minerals that were really powerful, gold was one of them. There were thousands of gold mines found in Zimbabwe, actually 2,000 years after these civilizations fell. The value of gold ethically did not increase or decrease, because as more gold was found, it was easier to get, rather. But it was still pretty valuable. Gold was found in steam beds on the upper Nile River and from parts of southern Ghana. Mine shafts of gold ores were discovered south of the Zambezi River. Those are the gold mines that were found in Zimbabwe. And although gold panning remained prevalent in regions in India, they eventually became exhausted of panning for gold and began to import their gold from Southeast Asia and Africa instead. As for silver, silver in India was exhausted by the continuous mining. This led the Indians to import large quantities of gold as well, large quantities of silver as well as gold. And copper and iron were both found especially important in Africa, and local coppersmiths worked copper ingots into wire and decorative objects. There was a town in western Sudan which used copper bars as a currency in place of coins. Skilled artisans in West Africa cast copper and brass statues and heads that were considered among the masterpieces of world art. As for iron, iron was the most abundant and useful tool. It was also the cheapest to get. Iron-tipped spears made hunting especially efficient, and you can see the spears and tools in the bottom right-hand corner. Iron tools, such as hoes and axes, were especially useful to clear and cultivate the rainforests.
That's it, guys. That was Tanatsua and Lulu and Sam and who? Griffin and Wesley and Sophia presenting to you on Tropical Asia and Africa. Hopefully you enjoyed it.